Alright, what is up guys? Today I'm going to be doing 6 arena tips that you guys should know. And these tips will help whether or not you're in champions, but let's get right into it. So the first tip is actually mastering your drop spot. Now when you master a drop spot, don't just choose a random POI. You want to choose a good POI that will give you a good amount of mats, good amount of loot, as well as having good NPCs. As many of you guys know, in Season 5 there are many NPCs that are pretty overpowered. You can even upgrade to like purple or even gold in certain locations, as well as getting some free weapons from challenging some of the NPCs. So just to give you guys an example of a good location for an NPC is actually Pleasant Park. If you go to the dog house, there is a dog NPC that will offer a bounty, and as soon as you land you can trigger a bounty and it will most likely be on the other team that is in Pleasant with you. So if you kill them, you get pretty much easy gold right away, right off the bat. And another challenge he offers is literally just to ring the doorbell until it breaks, and that gives you like a free 100 plus gold. And every time you kill a team, you can just activate a new bounty and it'll trigger a new bounty near you. Alright, so once you've racked up enough gold, you can actually head up north towards Stealthy Stronghold. And there's a 50% chance that the beef boss will spawn here. You can just take a card to quickly check if he's there or not. That way you don't waste too much time. And if he is there, you can easily get up to gold rarity with all the gold you've racked up from Pleasant. Now if he's not there, that's because there is a 50% chance that he can spawn in his other location, which is in Logjam. And if you guys want to know all the NPC locations and what they have to offer, I would highly suggest checking out the Fortnite.gg website. It has a lot of info that will be really helpful when scouting out for good NPCs and good drop spots. Now there are certain locations where they can give you good weapons. For example, by Holly Hedges to the left of it, there is Ragnarok, which if you challenge him, he will offer you a P90. All you have to do is simply kill him. Now make sure not to stand too close because that P90 will shred you pretty quickly. But yeah, this is mostly what I personally do. I usually get this P90 for free pretty much every game. It's really good. Now even more overpowered, north of Holly Hedges towards this campfire, you can actually find Blaze. And if you challenge her, she actually offers a Dragon's Breath shotgun. Now most of the time that I go here, she doesn't actually seem to offer it. She usually offers the exotic sniper. So the chances of her actually offering her Dragon Breath shotgun for a challenge doesn't seem to be 100% of the time, so that's why I don't always go here, but it is worth checking it out if she does offer it. Alright, that's enough of the NPCs, now let's move on to the second tip. The second tip is to actually play more aggressive, because playing passive you can get points easily, but it won't really help you with W keying or getting better for tournaments, because the end games aren't really that stacked. Even in champs they're pretty dead. So I would really only use arena to practice W keying. Now if you do want to get better at late games, I would highly suggest you go into an opens Discord. For example, I'm West, so I just simply type in West Open and I join the West Open Discord. Or if you're from Europe, maybe there's a Europe Open Discord, and usually they'll be running some sort of scrims, whether it be solos, trios, or duos. And everybody in those discords are looking for late game practice, so it's really good practice. Also, when you're trying to practice W key games, make sure you're landing at a POI that has at least like 2 to 3 teams landing there every time. But I also wouldn't recommend landing somewhere big like Salty Towers or Lazy Lake unless you really know the POI and you can really play around it. But most of the time it's pretty 50-50, so I wouldn't recommend that. The better POIs to land at are probably like Misty, Pleasant, Retail. Just depending on the bus route, you can determine where a lot of people are going to land. So make sure you not only master your one drop spot for late game, but you also want to master some drop spots for W key games. So for example, my main drop spot is usually Holly, but for W key games I've been practicing a lot of Misty and Pleasant Park as well, so I can get used to it. Depending on the bus route, I'll land Pleasant or Misty, and there's usually at least 2 to 3 teams that land there, and both of those locations are really good for NPCs as well. Now the third tip is actually, if you're playing in a team game mode, make sure you guys are sticking really close to each other. Even during build fights, make sure one of you isn't just going up for high ground. Make sure you're all like coordinated, so if one person is going for high ground, you guys all have to go for high ground. And as soon as the enemy sees that you're split from your team, that will usually target you, and it's a pretty difficult situation to get out of. And while you're fighting, make sure you communicate with your team, so call out any tags you get. So even if you just shoot the opponent once with your AR, like a 30 tag, that is really important, because depending on how much tags my teammate got on the enemy determines how I will play the rest of this fight. So if he's one shot, I'll try to be more aggressive and apply tons of pressure, that way he can't heal. And if he's not so weak, I'll play a little bit more passive and try to get piece control. or maybe some tags from a distance. So playing with your team and communicating can be very important, so make sure you are coordinating with your team whenever you are in a fight. It's also very important to call out when an opponent is in your box, or if you have them boxed. That way your teammates can quickly run over to you and help you out. Alright, moving on to the next tip, we have learn to end fights quickly. Fighting for a long time will not only give you a higher chance of being third-partied, but you're also wasting a lot of resources like your mats and your shields. So if your fight takes too long, then the enemies will barely have any resources left by the end of the fight, leaving you with low mats and shields. So if the enemies are just building too high, just play the low ground and reset and have them drop down and then play from there. It's just not really worth building up that high and wasting all those resources. By ending your fights quickly, you will lower your chances of getting third-partied, and you also get a lot more resources out of it. Now the best way to end fights quickly is to actually try to get some tags first on the enemy. So if you are in a team game mode, make sure you coordinate with your teammates. Like I said in the previous tip, if you see one enemy that's a little behind or he's in the open and you can get easy shots on them, as long as you do like 100 damage and crack their shield, they'll usually box up right away, and then you can apply pressure from there, and that'll just put you at a huge advantage already. And it's even better if you can knock one player, because it just makes it a whole lot easier. Next is making full use of the mobility to get around the map quicker. So recently they have actually taken out rifts and shockwaves, but there's still many ways to get around the map. Especially when you're in the middle of the map in the desert area, you have sand tunneling or the crystals that you can use to teleport. Now I'm sure a lot of you guys already know this, but if you don't already, you can simply put like a cone on top of the crystal, it'll break it instantly and drop them. And obviously cars are the main form of mobility right now, but you should also look out for any boxes that contain food, that way you can find peppers. And in my opinion, peppers are very underrated because you can get around the map a lot quicker. And if you hold peppers for late game, you can actually have such easy rotations just by simply running. Not only will you get a much easier rotate, but people trying to target you will have a harder time to track you as you're moving a lot quicker. So if you're playing trios, for example, I would really suggest that one of you carry some peppers. Also, another underrated tip is if you have bouncers, make sure you're splitting that between your team if you are playing a team game mode. There's lots of times where your teammates can use those bouncers to actually avoid getting caught in a fight. Always having a bouncer on you is very important. It can get you out of fights, or you can rotate much quicker if you have to. And you might not always have your teammate right next to you, so having your own bouncers is pretty important. So make sure you're splitting them between your team, that way each of you have an escape route under high pressure situations. Now the last tip is always try to have the first tags on the enemy. If you're in a team, this is much easier to do if you all coordinate and attack one person. You can easily knock one player, leaving you guys with just a 2v3, which is much easier to deal with. And if you do see a trio and they don't see you yet, make sure you are well hidden as you're pushing up and running towards them. You always want to be running behind something, that way they don't see you sneaking up on them. So for example, you can use the hills or the trees, and even loop around if you have to instead of going straight towards them. Most of the time, if you get the first tags, you would usually end up winning the fight. You can just keep pressuring the opponent, that way it delays their heals, and by the time you get there, they'll still probably be boxed up. And if you do knock a player far enough from their teammate, you can actually go for the finish. So yeah, that is going to be it for the arena tips for today. I've been playing a lot of arena lately, so if you guys do want more arena related content, let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next one.